Okay, so Laura makes this post the other day, and I'm not going to bother reading the whole post because it's just her usual bullshit of her, ooh, Brittany, I don't care about you, but I'll be alive later. It's the same old bullshit. What we're going to focus on here is this one sentence that says, I heard from someone that Beach doesn't believe I was a showgirl 35 years ago, okay? 35 years ago, Laura was a showgirl, according to her. So, here's the thing, all right? We all know she's had all these fucking jobs that she, claims to have with no prior experience. She just shot up from the ground, and they were like, hey, you could be a stockbroker. Don't worry about taking your, series, whatever exam. We'll just make you a stockbroker, because we like you. It's like she had all these jobs, but she doesn't have the experience to even get any of these jobs. But anyway, now she's claiming she was a showgirl 35 years ago, which would put us back at 1991. But back in February, somebody had come into her chat and they asked her a question, and they said, can we see your showgirl videos? Would it be on YouTube? What year was it? Do you still know the showgirls you worked with? Now, mind you, Laura has talked about being a showgirl, but never has told, not one story about being, a showgirl. Like, oh, I worked at the Copacabana or something. No, we don't know where she was a showgirl. She doesn't ever say. She doesn't talk about any of the training she had to do or anything like that. I mean, a job like that, you would think you'd have a lot of stories and memories from, but, she doesn't have any. But anyway, this is her response to this person asking if there's any videos.
It was like 25 years ago. Actually, it was a little longer. 25 years ago.
So now it's either 35 years ago or 25 years ago. She can't tell. But anyway, that would put us anywhere from 1991 to 2001. And you're going to see why this is a problem. But let's finish this clip because this person continues to ask her questions about it. And she starts getting really annoyed.
Time ago. No, when I danced, we didn't even have cameras. You had to take a Polaroid at the place. So no, you wouldn't see me perform.
That's funny because 25 years ago, I got my first digital camera. I was actually still in high school. And then I had a camcorder that my mom bought me for Christmas one year, sometime around 2001, which again would be 25 years ago. So yeah, if it was 25 years ago, cameras existed back then. So this person then comes back in the chat and they're like, well, there's, footage of showgirls from the 1960s. And this is her response to that.
And D. Ryder, I think then you should go find those videos. I do have great memories, that I will say. But it's something in the past. I have great memories when I was a broker too. I have better memories from being in the music business. It is what it is. I have lots of memories from all over. You don't have to say sorry. Just nobody's talking about it. You keep bringing it up.
So this person is seeming to show some genuine interest in this career that she had. Maybe they're into dance or something, and they're just asking her pretty reasonable questions, and she's getting really annoyed with it.
I didn't say I wasn't proud. But again, it was a long time ago. Very long time ago.
She just can't decide if it was 25 or 35 years ago. Okay, so here's the problem because the math ain't mathing over here. She said quite a few conflicting things. Now, if it was 35 years ago, that would be all the way back in 1991. And according to Laura's website, she, left New York City after 9/11. Now that wouldn't make sense because 35 years ago would mean that she actually left long before 9/11 and moved to Vegas and was working there because, you see, here's the problem. There's also a clip of her saying this on a live that doesn't make sense.
Playing two kids later. I remember after I got pregnant with the twins, I had gone into my boss to tell him that I was, leaving for good. And I walk into the club and he's like, hey, what's going on, Fallon? Because my name is Fallon. And I said, nothing. I just want to let you know I've gained a little weight and I'm retiring my heels forever. He's like, what do you mean? I said, dude, I'm pregnant with twins. And I said, I'm going to Florida. I was like, I'm going back home with my parents. So he was like, really? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, how about one more night? I was like 3 months pregnant. I said, are you insane? I said, I'm 3 months pregnant with twins. He's like, so you'll still make money? I said, that's okay, Vinny. I said, Vinny, it was a pleasure working for you for the last 12 years. You have a wonderful life. And I left and I never turned around. And, but that was in Vegas.
Okay, and this is where the timeline becomes extremely problematic, all right? We all know that her twins turned 21 this year, so this means that Laura would have walked into that job in 2005, okay, when they were, when she was pregnant, and told Vinny that Fallon can no longer dance because she put on some extra weight, and, thank you for the wonderful 12 years. Well, if you subtract 12 years from that, that puts us back again to 1993, and the math ain't mathing. That would mean that she was working in Vegas from 1993 as a stripper for Vinny to 2005. And if you look at her LinkedIn, well, there's a little problem. She claims she was the vice president of operations, right, for this on-site trading company from January 1998 to September 1999. So a year and 9 months she worked there. So how the fuck did she work both in New York and as a stripper in Vegas at the same time? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And at another time, she said this.
You guys don't know. Some of you guys know. I used to be a broker right out of my marriage. I put a hold on dancing and I became a stockbroker for a couple of years till I got thrown out of the business. Two industries I know a lot about. Well, three. I know a lot about dancing. I know a lot about the music industry. And I know somewhat about the stock brokerage industry. I haven't been in it since 1997, but I still know a bit about it. I still have friends that are brokers and everything else.
So in that clip, she says that she put a hold on dancing, which she was probably dancing while in New York, or allegedly, right? And she became a stockbroker for a whopping year and 9 months. But the problem is she says 1997 while her LinkedIn says 98. Now, granted, I wouldn't remember what years I worked where, so I'd have to do some research, but I remember at least what order, I worked at certain jobs in, which she doesn't seem to remember for some reason. And not only was she a stockbroker without, doing anything, without no college education or anything like that, but she was only in the industry for a year and 9 months. I mean, how much could you even learn in a year and 9 months? But in any industry, let alone, stockbroker. But how do you go from being a stripper to a vice president of operations, right? Managing an entire floor of NASDAQ day traders? Who was she giving BJs out to get such a high position without any prior experience, coming from the dancing industry? It just doesn't make any type of sense. Now, she might have worked in the office. I just highly doubt she was actually a stockbroker. But, she didn't have a college education because according to her LinkedIn, she didn't go to college until way later, when she lived in Iowa. So, this just doesn't make sense. If she was working for this guy Vinny for 12 years, then that puts her all the way back from that means she worked for this guy from 1993 all the way to 2005. So that would also mean that during the time she was allegedly an assistant to the vice president of sales and marketing for Atlantic Records here in New York, she was also dancing for Vinny in Vegas. It just doesn't make any type of fucking sense. Now, if you notice, there's a huge gap from 2001 to 2009. So I'd say more likely than not, that's the period of time she was, allegedly dancing and being a Vegas showgirl. But, she just can't make up her mind on the timeline where exactly this all fits. And it especially doesn't make sense because she claims on her website that, she left New York after 9/11. But if you go by the other stories she told, she was dancing in Vegas at least since 1991 or 1993. It's girl, get your fucking timeline straight. This is why she sits here and wonders why people question her. And when you look at her LinkedIn, where she says she was an associate producer and, all these things, she only worked at these jobs for a year and some odd months. I mean, it's not really considered a career at that point when you're only there for less than 2 years. And I just want to know how she got all of these jobs with no prior experience in these industries. I mean, typically you start at the bottom and work your way up. But for her, she just got hired at these like higher level jobs, such as a vice president of operations or an associate producer, like with no prior experience. It just doesn't make any type of sense. I mean, like, to be an associate producer, you would think that you would need some experience in film and television or something to that effect. But no, she just got hired from being, a stripper to a stockbroker to an executive producer, or I'm sorry, an assistant, and then she just got hired right out of the AT&T store to be a executive producer. Like, come on, dude, that doesn't even make sense. And she can't be surprised that people are like wondering why and thinking that her story doesn't add up about being a Vegas showgirl. It's like, dude, you don't have any pictures, not one picture, or you're not friends with somebody who could get a picture of, you back in the day. Like, my cousin is a professional dancer, like a real dancer, not a stripper. And like those girls that you dance with and spend all that time with, you form very close bonds with them that last for a lifetime. So it's hard to believe that nobody that she danced with, has a picture or anything. I mean, we all know that girls that love to dance, they also love to take pictures, and they tend to be performers, so they love taking pictures and videos. Like that's their whole life revolves around that. You just don't have any pictures, right? Or videos or anything, because, cameras didn't exist back then. It's just like the timeline doesn't add up, and maybe she could clear it up and let us all know when she actually did these things, and, when she actually worked as a showgirl, again, which is a hard job to get without, having some type of prior experience. But I guess stripping counts. I don't know. But maybe she could clear this up and, let us all know, when exactly she was a Vegas showgirl, because right now the math ain't mathing.